you check the children? Your little mess
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And you got Jaime and Fuego here.
And we are doing our second top list from 2022. And this time we're going to be talking about the top 10 TV shows in the horror genre, or at least horror adjacent genre, because there's quite a few shows, but not nearly as many as there are movies to choose from. So, horror and horror adjacent kind of works. So, I watched a lot of horror TV this year. We're going to do a top 10. So I've got enough to fill that out, but yet there were still a few that I didn't get around to watching.
Same, way more for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we're going to cover everything that we watched. So let's get into it. And Fuego, I went first last time, so why don't you go ahead and go first this time with your number 10.
Yeah, so my number 10 is not something that completely blew me away, but I felt like it was an improvement upon the second season. And as I was kind of skimming around and trying to see what I'd forgotten about from early in the year, it was Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots Volume 3. I thought that this was a big improvement as far as the quality of not just like some of the animated styles that they went with, but also some of the storytelling. I really dug the final episode, which was a almost mocap, like human realistic CGI sort of situation about this entrancing woman who was coming up out of the water.
I hated that one.
But from a visual standpoint, I was into it. And then you also had some like the fun return of those 3 snarky robots, and there was also the episode that David Fincher directed. I think it was his first time doing an animated piece about the big like squid like monster thing that came up and was like that almost had an alliance with that one guy who was like feeding some of the other crew members to him.
That was a giant crab.
Giant crab. That's what it was. It's been so long since I'd watched it, I couldn't remember if it was squid or crab or whatever it was. But so there were some really solid entries, much more so in this. It still couldn't top that just the wall and the under and the excitement I had from the first season. But I'm glad that they at least decided to continue on with the development of this project. Tim Miller and David Fincher, I think, were the main ones behind it. And I'm glad that I could at least give a shout out to the fact that even though they're not all good, as with any anthology, I still really dug more of these than I did in the previous incarnation. So
cool. My number 10, I wasn't actually the biggest fan of this season, but it was, I think, literally the 10th horror show I actually fully watched. So I'm going to put Chucky Season 2 at number 10. There were some things that I liked about it. There were some things that I didn't like about it. But it is still a continuation of my second favorite slasher with the original voice. So I enjoy it at the very least for that. We reviewed it, so there's no need to dive any deeper than that. But yeah, Chucky Season 2 is my number 10.
Cool. All right, so jumping to my number 9, this was a show that initially, when Marsha and I were first starting to talk about it, and we miss you, MPH, I wasn't so into the Christopher Pike adaptation of Midnight Club that Mike Flanagan developed, and yet the more I thought about it, and then also after the show got canceled by Netflix upon his unceremonious departure that's about to transpire, he posted some stuff about what they had hoped to do in the second season, and it answered a lot of my irritations and aggravations about those unanswered things that they left in the first season. And the performances from all the kids are good. There was a little overuse of that 90s music for me, but beyond that, I mean, it is an anthology at its core, and the fact that each kid is telling a different story. And once again, just like with the Love, Death, and Robots, also on Netflix, some bits were better than others, but the more I thought about it, it kind of sat with me and settled with me, and the more I kind of turned it around in my head, the more I appreciated it, and I would like to revisit it. I don't know when / if there would be time allotted for that, but it aged in my head over time in a much better fashion. So Midnight Club, my number 9.
All right, my number 9 is going to be, I think I'm going to put Archive 81 Season 1 at my number 9. So this was a really interesting show. I think was it Netflix? I think it was Netflix.
It was Netflix. Yeah, it was another one I forgot about, unfortunately, but this was solid.
It was I think like 8 episodes, but it was about a film restorer, if I'm not mistaken, and he's hired by this dude and his massive corporation to restore a bunch of tapes that, for whatever reason, his team has not been able to do, and it's in this one particular closed down location, and the dude takes the job. Who the same actor who plays, for anyone that didn't watch the show, it's the actor that played Ramsey in Jurassic World Dominion, the Biosyn #2 guy. But yeah, so he's restoring footage there, and as he does, he's watching the footage and starting to get drawn into the story of the people he's watching on the tapes, namely a girl that's gone missing, if I'm not mistaken. And
We'd gone missing like years before.
Right, years before. Right. And so he slowly unravels this mystery about this place, I think it was like a hotel kind of thing that was run down or underneath. I don't know. It was a very complicated story, and I don't want to mess it up because it was towards the beginning of the year, but I do remember enjoying it. Unfortunately, it was not renewed for a season 2. No. But the atmosphere, it's a very slow burn horror show, but I found myself going back to it to finish. And I was satisfied, but they did leave it wide open for a season 2. So when they canceled it, it was a bit of a bummer. But yeah, Archive 81 will be my number 9.
Yeah, and I'm glad you threw it on because it was one that I forgot about as well. And it's just a bummer they couldn't continue that story because just like with Midnight Club, they left it wide open. So, yeah, damn. Okay, so jumping up to my number 8, and, this is one that, just like with any anthology, you might be placing this on your list higher. I'm not sure because I haven't seen yours, but Cabinet of Curiosities, the Guillermo del Toro. It's been all Netflix for me now that I think about it. But Guillermo del Toro, man, this is something that he had been wanting to do for a while, if I'm not mistaken. Just be the Rod Serling, the presenting of anthological scary stories, and do the whole introduction thing as well. It was splendidly acted. Once again, some of the installments are stronger than others. There's one with rats that was quite memorable, and even they set the standard pretty high in my opinion with the very first episode where this guy is that he unloads this old storage shed, and he's going through all this weird occult Nazi sort of stuff that was at least commandeered by the Third Reich, but dated way further back into European history and stuff. And so there was another episode with Andrew Lincoln who pops up later in this countdown for me. But yeah, Cabinet of Curiosities was strong, and I'm really hoping it gets renewed for a second season.
All right. So my number 8, I'm going to go with Little Demon, season 1. So this is a Hulu show that's animated that is mostly a comedy, but it's very grounded in the horror genre. Basically, it's about this little girl who lives with her mom. Her father's been absent her entire life, and I think she turns 15 or something.
She's going through puberty.
Yeah, she's going through puberty, and it turns out that she is actually the daughter of Satan, the Antichrist. And her mom has known the entire time because she obviously was with Satan at one point in order to have her. And so she's just been keeping her sheltered, but it's a really clever show because once she finds out, she's taken down to hell to meet her dad, and she's led by a few Cenobite-like creatures, and it very much knows the genre that it's playing in, and it just makes it more horror comedy, which is fine for me, for certain properties. And the show it remained entertaining for me. The characters did evolve. And the Aubrey Plaza character was hilarious and badass, and yeah, I really enjoyed this show. Now I don't know how successful it was or anything like that, but I really enjoyed it as a horror fan for a horror comedy. It was great.
Yeah, I was into it too, and the voice work by Aubrey, as you mentioned, and also Danny DeVito as the devil. Really fun stuff. Cool. All right, man. So now we are jumping to our number 7, and this is a tough one because there's between two, but I'm not going to meander. It's not full-on horror, but it's about as horrific and gorific as something that's superhero-centric can get. And so I'm going to say The Boys Season 3. And this went for super splatter, as you would expect from this show, but it was really the whole underlining mystery of Soldier Boy, the emergence of the character of played by Jensen Ackles, who is of supernatural fame, and so of course that was going to pique my interest even more so after a very strong second season with the Stormfront stuff, and just the evolution of Homelander as a villain, but also some of his vulnerability. I don't know the name of that actor, but just the ups and downs of his performance, and not like in quality, but in just the tumultuous craziness between season 1 and where we got with 3. Soldier Boy's intertwinement with Mother's Milk, also all the stuff with boy, is it woman or girl? I can't remember if they ever give a name to the little kick-ass Asian chick, but yeah, and Frenchie.
Yeah,
I
isn't
mean,
it
even more-
Kumiko or something like that?
Kumiko, yes, yeah. It's been a little while since I watched it, but like Frenchie had so much awesome heavy lifting to do. The stuff with Starlight and Huey. I mean, this show just continues to improve, and that's why they're spinning it off like crazy with the college training show, which looks really blood splattery nuts as well. There was the animated spin-off that they did too. So it's about as horror as I think this sort of material can get when it deals with superheroes. So yeah, Boys season 3.
All right, then I think next for me will be another horror comedy, but live action, and that's going to be the 4th season of What We Do in the Shadows.
Nice.
So this was still enjoyable. I still love the characters, but I definitely think season 3 was stronger, definitely the strongest thus far. This season had a couple of plot points that I didn't really care about. I thought Nandor's genie bit was kind of funny. I definitely always like Nadja and Laszlo, but I really didn't like Laszlo's story with the young Colin Robinson this season. That was just annoying and tedious, and I didn't care about little singing Colin Robinson. I didn't. I wasn't a fan, but it's still a really funny show with really great actors, and now that whole Colin Robinson thing is out of the way and he's back to normal, then I'm excited again for season 5. But yeah, I mean, it was still enjoyable, still funny, and still playing with the genre in a way that I really like. So that's why it's still up there at my number 7.
Yeah, it's unfortunately a show that I think this was one of the weaker seasons for me, and without getting too into it. But yeah, I guess the Vampire Club stuff was amusing enough for that brief little segue. So okay, cool. So we are on number 6 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. So once again, more horror comedy, I guess. And this is one that was on. Boy, I want to say it's on Showtime, but don't fault me on that. It's either Showtime or Stars. But anyway, it's the Courtney Cox show. Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear.
Shining Veil.
Shining Veil, yeah. So this one is definitely in a lot of ways an homage to Stephen King, and specifically The Shining, because you have this family that moves into this home, and this Courtney Cox essentially plays the Jack Torrance type character. She's a tormented writer who is trying to keep herself away from the bottle, and yet when she does fall back into that, it almost heightens her senses to a ghostly presence that is already there within the home. But it's really vulgar, and that's one of the show's biggest strengths, is the fact that while it only goes really gory and super horror in a few different segments, when it does, it's impressive, but it's really just a homage to King, also a skewering of the genre, but just the crass dialogue amongst this family. And Kinnear plays it really straight for the most part, which is funny, but he's got great chemistry with Courtney Cox, and they do go full Shining near the very end of it, but it's in a lot of the promotional material, so I don't think that's a super spoiler. And it did get reviewed for a second season, which is cool. And also Mira Sorvino, who I can't remember the last thing I saw her, and she's really great in this too. So
Cool.
Not number 6.
Right on. Well, my number 6 is going to be perhaps a fan favorite, but I went with Wednesday season 1 for my number 6. I did enjoy this show. It is definitely filling the hole that Sabrina left, because I enjoyed the Sabrina show as well. And this is a really great characterization of Wednesday. Jenna Ortega does a wonderful job. The family, the Addams family, is actually a lot closer to the original portrayal, with Catherine Zeta-Jones and Luis Guzman, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. So, and the weird one is Uncle Fester.
Yeah.
That everyone knows, Fred
Armisen.
Fred Armisen, right. And but he did a great job. So I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed that it was a monstrous whodunit, and I was actually a fan of the kind of goofy looking creature, and because the creature felt like it was right out of the live action Scooby-Doo movies, which I kind of have a soft spot for. The crazy creatures in that. So yeah, I enjoyed Wednesday season 1, and they still haven't announced if they're going to do a second season, but with the popularity,
they just did.
Oh, really? Okay.
Just this week. Yep. And there was the whole network stuff where they didn't know if it was going to shift to Amazon or something, but they got that all worked out. Season 2 on Netflix has been officially greenlit. So.
Cool. Okay, good to know. So yeah, at least it's worth your time if you want to get into it and haven't yet because you're worried about Netflix cancellation. You're at least going to get a second season. So yeah, Wednesday season 1.
Hell yeah, man. Okay, so jumping on to my number 5, and this is going to be a show that I really struggled if I wanted to put it in there, but because of the fact that I watched The Walking Dead initially for a panel that we did a number of years ago at Fangoria FearCon, and I think I'm one of the only ones that stuck with it all the way till the very end of all of us. And so
I have like 8 episodes left,
Yeah.
and I'm just in no rush to watch them.
Yeah, and that's because the final season was a little lackluster because the stuff with the Whisperers, which I believe they broke into 2 seasons, was really strong in my opinion and kind of a return to form for the show. And then with this one, they find a new idyllic community. I mean, the same things that we had seen before with this show, with Woodsboro and Woodbury. Was it? Yeah,
One of them, yeah, Woodbury,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, the one with the governor. And so yeah, it's another idyllic community. This one seems to be the most perfect, and yet, I mean, the strongest stuff for me, what made this season was the interactions between Maggie and Negan. It's legit some of the best acting I have seen on this show in quite a long time, and the way that they try to make reservations about that with the loss of Glenn being the obvious elephant in the room. And so that's what makes me excited for that. There's so many goddamn Walking Dead spin-offs at this particular point. The fact that they build this as a series finale seems kind of silly to me, and while it did go out with a little bit of a whimper in that regard, that it still was good. When it was good, especially with those 2 characters' interactions, it was really good, and I'd be remiss not to have it somewhere here on this list, because the gore and the zombie effects were also some of the best I've ever seen on the show. They did continue to improve those. So.
Okay. All right, then that's going to lead to my number 5, and this is where I slotted the first season of Cabinet of Curiosities. I really did enjoy it as an anthology. I liked the old return to, introductions with Guillermo. Like you said, some entries stronger than others, but all in all, a very well done, well presented, put together anthology that I would like to see more of, for sure. So,
Hell yeah.
Quick and easy.
Yeah, there we go. Sweet. Okay, so jumping up to number 4, there's 2 that are kind of shifty pants, but I'm just going to have to be decisive, and I'm going to go with Servant Season 3. Now, Servant is a show that was developed by M. Night Shyamalan, and I believe he had his daughter penning some of the scripts to this, but it's a show that has a terrific cast. Rupert Grint, I want to say his name is, the dude who was from the
Ron Weasley.
Yes, exactly, from the Potter series, and Toby Kebbell is terrific in this. I mean, it starts out as like a baby that is essentially a doll that is in place of a mother who has lost her child, and she's going through all the grief and the coping mechanisms of that. But the show, over the course of 3 seasons now, has slowly morphed into something way bigger with cults and, conspiracies and corruption. There's also an underlying supernatural aspect that they have yet to properly address. And the 4th and final season is about to premiere this month, and Apple TV Plus. And, as we say on this show quite a bit, Apple does not muck around with their shows. They definitely put the time and the money and the effort and the great creative minds behind them. And so the blurbs I've seen on Twitter, at least, is that a lot of our big just aching questions that have not been properly resolved, there's a lot that's going to be answered, and we're going to get some finality and some resolution. So I mean, terrific performances top to bottom on this show, and if you haven't had the chance to check it out, Servant is awesome. Love this show.
Yeah, I still haven't watched it, but oh, geez, you got a little too comfortable. But I might get around to it. If the 4th season really rounds it out well, maybe I will. But I'm not a big fan of cult stuff normally, so
it doesn't start out as that, but
I know.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm in no rush.
Yeah, and it gave Marsha major trauma too, being a mother and everything herself, with some of the themes that they deal with. So it's a little rough. One episode in the first season in particular, but that's my number 4.
My number 4 is going to be Alice in Borderland Season 2. This dropped at the very end of the year, and I squeezed it in because I really loved the first season, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. It wraps up the whole story, at least I think so. It really does. I mean, it does. All the characters are wrapped up, and the story is wrapped up, but they have a little tiny thing at the end that could be like, but is it? But not nearly as bad sequel baiting as a lot of stuff. But I really liked it. If you don't know, the show is about a group of people in Japan that suddenly find themselves in a situation where most of the people in the city have disappeared, and everyone that's left are forced to enter deadly games against one another in order to survive and try and defeat whatever force is behind the games, so to speak. And every game is represented by a playing card. So there's 52 games to be won throughout the 2 series and the 2 seasons. And it was just really entertaining. It's one of the most bingiest shows that I have watched. Because in the first season, most of the episodes, if I recall correctly, were one game. So, like, you got a full little thing in each one. And in the second season, they smartly kind of divided the games. They would start a game halfway through an episode and be halfway through the game when the episode ends. And you're like, wait, what? And you just click to the next one.
So they're DBZing it. Interesting.
Okay, yes.
An extension of the fights, yeah.
So, yeah, that's it was really entertaining. Tons of gore. Definitely probably more horror adjacent, but still very much a lot of horror scenarios, and to me, it's more entertaining than Squid Game. And yet Squid Game is the one that got mega popularity last year, but I do think many people deserve and should check out Alice in Borderland.
Nice. Yeah, I did the first season, but I have yet to check out number 2, and I really need to make the time. So, okay, coolness, man. So on to my number 3, and this is another new entry to the proceedings, and not really of the horror comedic variety that I've been talking about this whole damn time, but Yellow Jackets. Now, this I know was on Showtime, and this is also about to start its 2nd season. Yes, it does have a lot of similarities to Lord of the Flies, but with just a girls' soccer team instead. But it's really the fact that it does I haven't watched Lost, but I know that Lost does the time jump between Stuck on the Island and then to like the forward back and how people are doing after the fact. And the fact that you have this terrific cast of both young girls, including the redhead daughter from Santa Clarita Diet. She gives a terrific performance as one of the girls on the soccer team in this. But you also have great older actresses, including Christina Ricci in like a dynamite performance as this grown-up wormy little nurse who is like I guess amateur sleuth, and she's got an interesting dark side to her as well. And the fact that they still within the first season only answered a few of the questions about how these girls are actually able to get back after their small little podunker plane crashes somewhere in like the Alaskan Canada area, so like northern North America in the cold. And so you've got all of them fighting against each other, inner squabbles. You've got implications of cannibalism, of just all kinds of craziness, and yet they only pull the curtain back just enough to keep you just rabidly awaiting the 2nd season, which actually I found out just yesterday added Elijah Wood to the adult characters in the now setting when they're not doing the flashbacks. So that's exciting. Adding more talent is never an issue. And so yeah, Yellow Jackets is great. I know Marsha was a big fan of it too, if I remember. So
yeah, I still just haven't. I don't have Showtime, so I still just haven't been able to watch it yet. Couple shows like that too. I don't want to ruin anything in case it's on your list.
Yeah, because I think Let the Right One In.
That was what I was going to say. Yeah, I haven't watched that yet for the same reason. And From too, or is From AMC Plus?
From is on Epix, which I guess yesterday just rebranded as MGM Plus. So who knows? And there is a 2nd season of From coming, and I got 3
episodes in. That was going to be on my list, except that I didn't finish it. I got 3 episodes in because that's all that was available on Plex. which is a different service that I have. None of the other episodes were on there, so I haven't been able to watch the rest of it. So I need to just bite the bullet and get Showtime somehow or whatever, plus Epics.
Yeah.
But that's going to go to my episode number 3, and that's going to be, do I want to shift these around a little bit?
I've had the same issue this whole time. I'm like, ugh.
Because I really did enjoy this a lot. This might be my number 1, but...
My number 1 is clear, Pat, so, yeah.
So, because one of the 3 is also not very... It's one of the more horror adjacent, so I guess maybe I'll move that down to number 3. So, because this was listed as my number 1, because I think it was the show I enjoyed the most this year, but it is horror adjacent more than anything.
And I think I know what it's going to be, and it's probably my number 1. But
oh, really? Well,
I won't reveal.
So okay, all right, because yeah, that all right. I'm sorry if I fuck it up. If fuck you up.
It's all good.
So I'm gonna say that the first season of The Sandman is my number 3. So yeah, I mean, maybe shift yours around too if you don't want to have that ruined or whatever. But
that's okay.
But yeah, The Sandman is a comic book series that I read, 20 years ago. And I've had for just as long, and it's just never been adapted, surprisingly. People have tried numerous times. It's never come to fruition. And the only way that Neil Gaiman was going to let it come to fruition is if they were able to actually put the money and effort towards it that he truly wanted without changes, And that's what Netflix finally stepped up and did, and it was just a wonderful TV experience, and there are definitely horror aspects to it. I mean, a whole episode is him traveling to hell, and the implications that brings with it. But there's a lot of other things too. The diner episode could very much be its own horror movie. The Corinthian himself is very much a horror-like villain, and I just really loved what they did, how they did it. I thought. The person they got to play Dream was fantastic. The woman they got to play Death was fantastic. It just was an all-around outstanding TV show that have they announced that they're doing second season yet? Oh, you went mute. What happened?
I'm going to admit it was going to be my number 1, but I'm fine with swapping the 2. So at my number 2, The Sandman, I'll just carry the conversation.
Okay.
And I read these a long time ago as well, but I think I was a little too young to fully appreciate a lot of the just pathos and some of the. I mean, it was very intense subject matter, and a lot of the Vertigo stuff when I was like 12 and 13, and reading it, maybe I just wasn't quite of the level of maturity to really properly appreciate, because I rediscovered the property earlier this year when I was driving around for my day job, and they have these audio dramas that they've been putting out. And just terrific cast, James McAvoy, Kat Denning. You've got Neil Gaiman, actually, he's the narrator for it, which is terrific. And so I was re-going through a lot of these stories, and then seeing them visualized was just tremendous. Most notably, the bit with the diner, which they didn't go quite as intense, but they still went enough to get everything across. And then even the episode where it's about the Death explaining to Dream the nature of taking people over to the other side, whether they're babies in a crib or whether they're, a kid who's out playing ball and doesn't even realize he died. And then they tied that tremendously with a different story, but they, like the way that they scripted that episode with basically Dream going back after making this bet about somebody being immortal, never wanting to die, and him just meeting this character every 100 years or something, and seeing how that character progressed and how their friendship bloomed over time and so on. And the stuff with Hell was great. The only bits that I was a little disappointed with was the Dollhouse segment, and that's where they have the whole convention and all the killers and whatnot. Not that I thought it was bad, but that's the central story they've been trying to make into a movie apparently for a number of years, and using that as the crux for it. And they altered a few things that I didn't think were terrible, but I didn't like it quite as much as, and that's where the burden of comparison in the fact that I had just reacquainted myself with the source material might have played in. But, and also the bonus animated episode with the cats, man. I mean, since I'm a new cat dad and it's all very, very fresh and new to me, was so awesomely done. So yeah, this series kicked ass and it lived up to my expectations, which were pretty high. So that's some significant praise, I'd say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that cat episode, it was great because it was part of a bonus episode. Like the first 10 dropped, and the people that binged through it were rewarded like a couple weeks later with a bonus episode that had the Calliope story in it as well.
Which is a great one too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but the cat story was always my favorite issue of the series. And the fact that the bonus I was like, oh man, there's no way, because it's not going to fit in with the Dream storyline. I was like, there's no way they're ever going to put that in the series. And then the bonus episode was like, boom, here you go. And I was like, oh shit, that's so awesome. So yeah, that's part of why it was my number one as well. But when considering for a horror list, I had to move it down just a little bit. So I'll go to my number two then, and that means maybe our number ones are going to be the same as well.
Can I just jump in with a fun fact real quick?
Yeah.
It's that cat story from the Sandman that made me finally give in to getting a cat.
Oh, really?
with my partner, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So that means that I'm going to make my number two the first season of Interview with the Vampire. So this show, like,
Need to watch it.
we did a trailer reaction for it, and we were interested, but I was truly bought in when I sat down with my lady to watch the first episode. And the first episode was so well done, because the thing is, it changes some things, but it does basically say that the first movie happened years ago. And obviously, Louis is now a black gentleman, which makes a lot more sense, I think, in the story that they're telling. Because, you know, as opposed to a rich plantation owner that's gotten bored with life, it's now someone that would otherwise be stuck on a plantation were his parents not rich. So he deals with the regular racism and constantly having to prove himself. And it just plays really well in the world that Anne Rice kind of built. And his relationship with Lestat is magnetic. The dude they got to play Lestat is, I think, better than Tom Cruise. He strikes me as a centuries-old vampire, as opposed to, well, he's not really centuries old, but he does come off like a very learned, wizened vampire, more so than just like a pretty boy, the way kind of Tom Cruise did, in my opinion. Because this Lestat gets fucking intense. I never bought the intensity from Tom Cruise as menacing, but Lestat in this is legit menacing when he needs to be. The show is so gory, like so gory. At one point, like, there's a body that's found strung up on a gate of a plantation, missing its lower half with its entrails dripped out and everything. Like,
Damn.
it's really cool. There's one scene that they did that never happened in the movie. I don't know if it ever happened in the books. I haven't read them, but it's an argument that Louis and Lestat get into. And what happens at the end of the argument to finish it is just fucking crazy. I was like, holy shit. It's only 7 episodes, the first season, hour long each. But I personally think that it only handles the first half of the original movie, the events that happen in the first half of the original movie. It doesn't even get to like the Antonio Banderas of it all. It gets up through the Claudia. Yeah, it gets up through the Claudia of it all. And it's just, but it's got 7 hours to do that. So it's allowed to take its time. It builds the characters. It gives the characters adequate time on screen so you can get attached or not attached as it may be required for the story. But everything is deeper. And I truly think that this is the best way to do long book adaptations, and should be it should be a template as to how Stephen King books should be done, how, you know, Michael Crichton books should be done, how, you know, how certain books should be done so adequate time is given to the development of the story. Because this is it. This was fantastic. Could easily have been my number one were it not for the guilty pleasure aspect of my number one.
I guess it's going to be the same for both of us then, probably. Yeah, this is one that I specifically renewed AMC Plus right around the end of the year so that I can, because I had it for The Walking Dead, and I was like, oh, I'll watch Interview with the Vampire, and you have the Mayfair Witches, which is about to start with Dario. Yep. And the time around the holidays and was starting school just didn't jive, unfortunately. But especially hearing your high praise here, dude, like, shit, I need to... You'll
love it. As a vampire fiend, you'll love it.
Yeah, I'm a fanger in that regard.
You're a fang banger.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess our number one is going to be the same, and it's got to be Stranger Things,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
I guess we can both just talk about it.
Yep.
Now, interestingly enough, I saw some TV review people when they were doing their best of the years, they broke it into 2 seasons.
Nah,
Now,
it's
yeah,
part
because
1 and
they're
part
like, it's
2.
4 and 4.5, and I was just like, no, no, no. Even though I did like the first half that they released all at once better than the second half. That's just me personally. The stuff with Max on Stranger Things season 4, Sadie Sink's shown, man, and it's the third time I've seen her shine this year because she's the daughter in The Whale with Brendan Fraser, and she's terrific in that. And she also was in another small indie coming of age drama that I saw at Phoenix Film Festival. I can't recall the title, but that little actress kicks ass, man. She's so good.
Lucas
Obviously,
brought it this year too.
Lucas did too, yeah.
Super good.
And I just got that spin-off book, the novel that they put out
Yeah.
recently, Lucas something. I just got it because they lowered it to $9.99 on Amazon, and I had a gift card, and I was like, all right, boom. So I just picked that up. Yeah, and obviously the addition of our metalhead dude and the Hellfire Club stuff was fun, and yeah, I mean, I felt like with the exception of Will, once again, everybody is like, why is Will being sidelined and all that stuff. They're saying in this 5th and final season they're really going to bring it proper with him, but the new villain was compelling and
Vecna
awesome.
was sick.
Vecna, yeah, exactly. And even though I kind of saw the telegraphing of the revelation about who that person was going to be, it didn't diminish anything for me. And I'm really sad that we are finally about to see these kids obviously be too old to play these roles anymore, but the fact that this phenomenon that's been Stranger Things, because I remember so very well when you and me and Marcia did our sleepover when it first debuted,
Yep.
and we stayed up all night and the next morning watching all the episodes before it was like the big pop culture just behemoth that it's become. So
Yeah, we were first in the door along with the early adopters. Yeah.
big time. So yeah, it was definitely. I don't know if I liked it quite as much as 3. It's really close to 2 at this point is obviously the weakest of all the seasons of this show. But yeah, 4 was satisfying. The running up this hill became a goddamn phenomenon in its own right, with that song coming back into play.
They did good. I mean, season 3 had the Never Ending Story song going buck wild again. They have a knack for bringing back dead tunes. You know what I mean?
And they don't overdo it like some of the other shows that have followed suit, in my opinion, become guilty of. So.
And of course, as storily unnecessary and kind of dumb as it was, the Metallica bit was really cool as well.
Yeah, guilty pleasure, I suppose. Yeah, I'm more of a Megadeth guy, but hey,
whatever.
Yeah.
You're never gonna win that fight.
Believe me, I know. I saw how much those Metallica Pantera tickets are, man. It's insane.
But yeah, no, season 4 of Stranger Things is my number 1 as well. I just really enjoyed it. I think it's just emblematic of how certain shows, when love and care is poured into them, don't have to decline in quality as time goes on. I do think I don't know if I liked it more or less than season 3. I think it's a little less than season 3. I think season 3 was peak because they did repeat, it seemed like, a lot of plot points in this season that they had done in the first season. So that was a little odd to me, at times. But overall, I was clicking right on the next episode when one ended. I can actually remember where I was watching the end of it because I was taking time away from a family vacation, because I wanted to finish it. And it was just really entertaining. Great character work, great acting, and the effects continue to be really cool. And it's a wonderful show that has, maintained its popularity for good reason, in my opinion. So.
Damn right, man. And I mean, Millie Bobby Brown, probably the best she's been ever on this show, I would contend. And I mean, if I was going to say any detriment, I didn't like in the first half how they split everybody up. But, aside from that, I really don't have many gripes. So it was a very satisfying season of Stranger Things. Yeah.
Indeed. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for our top 10 of 2022 as far as horror and horror-adjacent TV goes. Let us know if you have any selections or if you watched any of the shows we didn't get to, like Let the Right One In. I do have a feeling that well, I'm hopeful anyway that the topper for TV of my list for 2023 will be The Last of Us. We're not talking about we're not doing a most anticipated TV of 2023. But that would be my most excited for. But yeah.
I saw that they lifted any sort of embargo for people because they were sending out the whole season to critics.
I know, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Anyway.
But it's getting good words.
It premieres this Sunday. Whenever this goes up, it'll probably be right around there.
Yep. So that's going to do it for this episode, guys. We will be back to do our top 10 most anticipated horror movies of 2023. We're about to record that, so hopefully we'll keep the energy up. But yeah, let us know what your guys' thoughts are on the TV from 2022 down below. Have you not watched any of the shows we talked about, and now you're going to? I'd be curious about that. But thank you very much to all of our patrons for supporting the channel. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. This Sunday, we plan to knock out a shit ton of Patreon reviews. So that's going to be fun. So you guys are going to be watching a top list. I'm probably going to push the state of the channel until the following week. So that way we can focus on Patreon. But yeah, thank you guys very much. We do appreciate all of your support. And until next time, I've been Cecil Laird.
Gracias, I've been Jaime Fuego.
And remember, stay scared.